Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
Something I love doing is being out early working on the farm. It's like vacation to me. It really helps me get my day going, helps me to accomplish a lot quickly, and really just makes me to think clearer. It helps me to breathe some fresh air, as you all have heard me talk about many times. Being up early it's great. It is great. I love being up early and accomplishing a lot fast. I've interviewed so many people. You've heard me talk about it. And the common thing to success, one common thing, not the most common probably, but one very common thing is that people are up early. Does that happen for everyone? No. Does that mean that everyone that's successful in any business is up early every day? No. Many people do it the opposite, stay up late and sleep in. But more times than not, I find that people are up early accomplishing things quickly, when their mind is fresh and ready to go. And I say, if you're not a morning person, then that's, it's probably a wrong way to think. It's like you can be a morning person if you choose to be. I had to choose to be. I had to change that many years ago. But one thing I wanted to share with you is I was out working this morning. I was loading up some old wiring and fence posts and things I need to take to the dump before we start mowing and stuff. I don't want that stuff to get tangled up in our mowers. But anyway, I was just thinking about numerous projects that we're working on. I was just thinking through, different details about these projects, and I think about these things. I go to bed thinking about different details and how can we do it better? What if we did it this way, or what if we did it that way? And then I just contemplate, well, okay, wait a minute, who on the team's going to do this? What's our process going to be? What's the best ways to do that? How does it affect other people on our team? How does it affect our listeners or on the podcast? Or how does it affect our investors in our deals? I'm just trying to think through all those things, right? But I go back to often. There's many projects where it's a big deal, right? That it's correct, and we want to think through these things. But often, more times than not, we overcomplicate things. I wanted to share a little story with you where when I was getting started with the podcast specifically, where I just tried to overcomplicate it, and it delayed me in months in getting the podcast launched. And so at that time, we were living in a house where, actually, that's not long after we sold our farm. If you don't know that story, I'll share it some other time if you don't know it. But, we sold our farm at that time so we could be completely committed to the commercial real estate business. And obviously, massive commitment, on our part, entire family commitment. It was very difficult on our family, but that's another story I'll save for another day. But we sold our farm and we moved into town, and we were living in this house. Had to rent a house for a few months till we bought another small house in town. And then in this house, you could hear everything from one end to the other. If you can imagine recording a podcast in a building where, there's other people, and in this case, two little boys that would run through the hallway training their stick horses. They're training their stick horses up and down the hallway, or even them reading books at the other end of the house. I could hear from the room that I was going to restart recording the podcast from, and that just bothered me. I wanted this podcast to be as good as it could possibly be. Ultimately, wanted it to be perfect, right? Wanted it to be perfect. But that mindset, though, to some extent, kept me from getting started. If you never get started, you're never going to go anywhere. And if you don't get started, you're never going to improve, right? So I had to get started. But all I could focus on was, it's just going to be horrible. It's just going to sound bad, and there's going to be so much background noise. All those things that's what I was focusing on. I had a mentor, and I highly encourage you to get a mentor. We're mentoring a few selective people. If you're interested, you're welcome to reach out or go to the website and apply. But I had a mentor, and I was talking to him about this, and he also had a very successful podcast. If you're listening to this, most likely you know who Robert Kiyosaki is. and you know that Robert Kiyosaki is a very big name in real estate. He wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which transformed so many people's lives in real estate, right? Encouraged them to get into real estate and change their lives long term. Robert Kiyosaki is somebody that most real estate investors look up to in a big way. But I encourage you to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad if you haven't already, so you can just wrap your mind around real estate investing and getting started, and just the way the rich dad thinks versus the poor dad thinks. And that's just some very basic things that are very crucial things that you need to learn and understand from the beginning, or it just helps you in a big way. But my mentor, he had interviewed Robert Kiyosaki, and at this time I was sharing with him, I was just saying, it's so loud in my house. It's not going to be quality. I'm trying to figure out something else I can do. Do I go rent a hotel room and record in a hotel room? I was contemplating like all these things, like what can I do to record a better show? And even recording in a hotel room was an option. I thought, do I rent a hotel room and just try to record a dozen to 15 shows? That's what I was doing at the time, or started doing. And I thought that way I could be in a quiet place and have better quality shows, be better focused, not be distracted or have the background noise. And I was explaining this to him, and he just said, done is better than perfect. He said, I interviewed Robert Kiyosaki while sitting in my Toyota Camry. And that's all he had to say. That stuck with me because I was overcomplicating it, and it was hindering me from getting started. And it, held us way back. And we look back now over the growth of the podcast, the growth of our business. Just think if I could have started a few months earlier, right? Or 6 months earlier, instead of having that mindset of overcomplicating every little detail of something, about starting the podcast. Of course, I wanted it to be the best that it could be, and I had a couple different mentors that helped me at that time in different ways. But that was a big problem, and it hindered me from getting started for months. Trying to think through, I guess focusing on details that they do matter, but in the grand scheme of things, they didn't matter a ton at that time. Getting started was much more important. And so I had to get started. I finally did get started after he made that comment. I did find another place to record, but it helped me to think about the bigger picture. It helped me to think about, let's move forward. Let's get this going, as opposed to focusing on little details like that. So I want to encourage you, as you are trying to scale your business. Maybe you're starting a podcast, or maybe you are, starting some kind of business that, you're overcomplicating some details that just don't matter as much as you think they do. There are details about any business that matter in a big way, of course, and you have to determine what those things are. But I want you to really think through, are these details keeping me from getting started? Am I overcomplicating details that just really aren't going to matter? What is that for you today that's hindering you? Because without getting started, so, and let's use a podcast, obviously, for an example. My first, 10 shows, obviously, were not that great. The first 20 shows were not that great. And I've improved, obviously. And I think I just still have such a long ways to go. We've done almost 1,000 shows now, but I still feel like I have such a long way to go. And so I'm still just working on that constantly, right? How can I ask better questions? How can I improve the interview process? How can we find better guests, more qualified guests? How could, all these things, right? But if I had never gotten started, I would have never gotten to 1,000 shows. I would have never improved. And so I just encourage you, what is that thing you're working on for your business? What is it that's holding you back? What are you overcomplicating specifically that's hindering your growth? What is that for you? I would love to hear from you. I would love to know if we can help in some way. You're welcome to reach out on the podcast. You're welcome to email me, even Whitney at lifebridgecapital.com, or call or text me. It's pretty easy to find my number, but let us know how we can help you. I hope you have a blessed day. I look forward to speaking with you again tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.